Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me as usual is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron. How you doing?
Doing well, Frank. How are you?
I'm good. So apparently, the premier is going to be wearing his mask when he goes into hospitals.
Well, he did mention that he would wear it in certain situations, even though, it's not required anymore.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, okay, let's go. Let's go to the sports. And so for the Argo fans, their tickets go on sale. Let's see if there's going to be enough promotion to raise the profile of the team. What do you think?
Well, I do know that I got contacted a couple days ago to tell me that they would be contacting me later, and then I finally got the renewal today. And
Good.
yeah, I've re-upped for my season tickets for this year, and I know that they're going to be hitting the field again Friday, May 27th in Ottawa, and that's for preseason. And after that, we'll get into the swing of things. Have a couple games in Toronto during the exhibition, and away we go.
You like those?
Love those.
Perfect. I like them too. Maple Leafs goaltender Jack Campbell has a problem with his rib.
Yeah, we touched on this briefly, I think, on Wednesday, but Jack is going to be out for at least 2 weeks with an injury. He aggravated it in the game against the Seattle Kraken, apparently, and has not been having a good time of it. I know that he also mentioned to Morgan Riley that he'd been going through some of the issues, but he said, that he tweaked something a while ago, tweaked it, and then aggravated again during his 6-4 win over the Seattle Kraken on Tuesday. So this is, a bit of a cause of concern for the Maple Leafs, especially in light of the fact that Mrazek can't seem to find his posts. They had the Marley call up Shalgren, who played decently after the Leafs were already down by a significant chunk. But unfortunately, he couldn't pull out his first win.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing with Jack is kind of Anderson-ish.
Well, and I think this also plays into the culture that's around hockey, right? Because you're told growing up that you need to tough it out and to push through it, and everybody has those fantasies of winning the Stanley Cup in Game 7, playing through all sorts of hard stuff when you're out on the street as a kid. I mean, not necessarily the whole "oh, I'm injured" part, but at least the gutting it out and playing until the streetlights come on, and that unfortunately carries over into the adult leagues. So
But
you
we're not
have guys
talking about the sniffles here.
No, I mean, we're
right?
talking about guys that should be listening to their bodies and shutting themselves down when they know that something is wrong, who aren't.
Well, a physical ailment that is part of the, a part of the body required to make saves, because a rib can be pain is a funny kind of thing, right? And it has an effect on people, right? When they're doing stuff, you may not think that it does, and that's why anytime a player is injured, they need to be honest with themselves for the good for the team as well as them, and mostly the good for them long term, because we all know that if a player plays on a bad knee, not only does that knee get worse, so does the other good one. That kind of stuff. You end up creating a problem, exacerbating it.
Speaking from personal experience, I know I really didn't start to try to seek help for my dislocated shoulder until it got to the point where I would roll over in bed at night and my shoulder would just pop itself out. Right? That's one of those things when you're 15, 16 years old, you don't pay attention to that. You play through that. The same thing goes for the knee issues that I have. Banged up my left knee, continued to play through the injuries with the left knee, didn't really do what I needed to take care of it physically. And sure enough, next thing you know, I'm having right knee and hip issues. So it's all a question of making sure that you actually listen to what your body is trying to tell you, as opposed to trying to gung-ho it.
Yeah, listen, don't ignore it. Take care of it. You've got to do what you can. to ensure that you maintain good health. And now's not the time of year where you build on. Follow what I'm saying,
Oh, definitely. You know,
right? You don't do
this is
that
a time
now.
where every ache, tweak, and sniffle needs to be thoroughly examined.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Ottawa Senators recover, defeat Kraken with power play goal in overtime. So they do call penalties in overtime.
Apparently, yeah, they do. You know, it doesn't seem like it happens as often as it possibly should. And
Do
again,
you
this
want to go
plays
back to the
into
Leaf game and talk about Matthews and him being upset about a call that wasn't made that a referee was looking at? It was coming up. You see in the TV camera, you see what you see Matthews complaining, and you can see it's over the referee's shoulder and over the linesman's shoulder.
well, some of the actual footage of it too. You can see the referee leaning to the left to stare around the linesman directly at the play. So you know, it is
Well,
what it is. I'm not going to say that the NHL's referees still practice game management or anything like that, because obviously by firing Tim Peel, they made it very clear that they don't. Um, However, you know, it kind of makes you wonder, you know.
I gotta say, and I gotta say this with total sincerity, and this is not a bluff. This is not me making a comment to not trying to get clicks here, but the fact remains: hockey, if the officiating continues down this road, they've done it with they've done it already with the penalizing players for extracurriculars, if you will. Whenever the league gets involved, it's never consistent anymore. It's not consistent at all. Now the officiating on the ice isn't consistent. They seem to forget that they're getting involved with gambling. And I know this sounds silly, and I'm connecting two dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, but I think they're very connected. You want to get involved in gambling, you better look like you're playing the game straight. If the fix looks like it's in, it's going to create a problem. And eventually it's going to become a serious problem because the gambling sites are going to complain about it and tell the National Hockey League, you guys got to do this better. And I'm a firm believer. I've always said that these people who say that you don't want to affect the game because if the referee calls a penalty, he's affecting the game. I don't know two better examples in back-to-back nights, one in Edmonton, one in Toronto, that shows that in fact, when you don't call a penalty, you're affecting the game.
No, and certainly Ovechkin's hook on Hyman, which was enough to pull him off of his feet, prevented him from getting an opportunity at an empty net. That is the non-call, which directly affects a play and potentially affects the outcome of a game. The slightly more obvious example, obviously, was Chychrun grabbing Austin Matthews'
Because
stick
he's
and
the guy that
arm.
eventually scored the goal.
Yes,
Not
exactly. And
only did he not get a penalty, he was
mhm.
on the ice at that very moment, at that very play to score a goal. So tell me again how it doesn't affect the result.
It's as a direct result of him grabbing Austin Matthews' arm that gives him the opportunity he needs to get free, because Austin Matthews
Right. To
was
join the
pulled off
rush.
balance so hard he stopped skating. And it was not because he was trying to complain, is that he was actually pulled off balance and couldn't skate. Having been a player for a while, I do know these sorts of things, so I can speak from a limited amount of experience. So this is a penalty non-call that directly affected the outcome of a game, and it was obvious within the next 15 to 30 seconds.
And then Keith tried taking the high road by suggesting that we have to play through those kinds of things.
Well, I mean, the better thing in the first place would have been not to have found yourself down 4-0 to the Arizona Coyotes, or having to play catch up at all.
Yeah, but that's still, to me, that's a red herring. That's not the point. You can't sit there and say that a team has to score 2 goals to win. You can't say that. You can say the Leafs didn't play well enough that they put themselves in a position where they could lose, but they didn't lose the game. The official took it from them. That's that simple. It's not. It's not. It's not a. I would say the same thing, Aaron. You know me well enough that I would say the same thing if the roles were reversed, and that was a Leaf player doing that to a Phoenix. Sorry, Arizona player. I want to call him Phoenix. I would say the exact same thing. For me, I've always said, and I believe 100% all the time, penalty is a penalty is a penalty. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where. The whole point of the rules and why they crack down is because they don't want to leave any doubt that it's a penalty. So when they do the inverse, when they don't crack down, when they let penalties go, what are they saying? Well, it might be a penalty. well, maybe it isn't a penalty. Maybe it is. That leads to confusion for the players, and that to me is the problem. The problem is that if you don't call a penalty, the players are entitled to be confused and then upset when something does happen.
No, it's a completely fair assessment.
It is what it is, buddy. So yeah,
Yep.
so an overtime penalty gives the Senators a win back there again. Kraken doing their trip through Canada, not having much luck.
Well, this is the last team that the Kraken actually had to play before they played every team in the NHL. So there you go.
Calgary, Goudreau has hat trick and Flames 4-1 victory over the Lightning. Boy, oh boy.
The Lightning seem to be suffering from the same sort of ailment the Leafs suffer from, and that's not starting on time. Not starting on time at all. So
Connor McDavid gets his 35th. Comrie makes 33 saves. Jets beat Devils.
So this is a nice little bit here. I'm glad to see that they're actually finally getting a couple wins under their belts. They haven't been the most consistent team at all, but Eric Comrie, has made 33 saves. It's his 7th win in 10 starts, so that's definitely a positive for them. Comrie knows that he's going to get very limited ice time behind Hellebuck, and so he's making the best of every opportunity when he gets it.
Sorry, McDavid, not Connor McDavid. The other was Connor. This is McDavid scores in OT. Oilers beat Capitals to snap skid. And the Capitals ended up getting a point because of the non-penalty call. But
exactly,
David and the boys did win the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is what we discussed before. It did still directly affect the play in that the Capitals managed to get themselves a point in order to
What if the Capitals make the playoffs by 1 point?
Right. And that's the point that gets them there.
Right. So, that's why it matters. Penalties do matter. I mean, there has to be accountability for not playing fair. It's that simple. Miller lifts Canucks to 5-3 win over the Canadiens.
So glad to see that the Canucks are finally getting everything turned around again. I'm sure that in the next couple of games, everything will go to hell in a handbasket and Montreal will get back onto their winning ways again. Just, having said that, Miller has finally extended his point streak to 10 games. He's got 21 points on 7 goals and 14 assists in the past 10. So he's been doing well. Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser also scored power play goals. Travis Hamonic also scored, and Bo Horvat had the empty netter. So Thatcher Demko also came up big, making 22 saves.
In other games of relevance, I guess, in the National Hockey League, the primary one was the Sabres had a home game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And yeah, I think their former captain plays for Vegas, and that was an interesting little visit.
Yeah, no, it was good to see Jack make his return. As is tradition amongst fans returning, players returning, he got booed heartily by the fans. Had some rather uncharitable, but also kind of true things to say after the game about the Buffalo fans. Specifically, that they're booing him is finally an indication that they're getting their butts out to a game, and it took 7 years and him leaving for them to finally show up for a game.
Jack Eichel takes jab at Sabres fans, of course, because of this. Look, when it comes to an injury, a player has every right to make decisions, final decisions. Those decisions, of course, are always made with the input of experts, right? Well, his experts didn't agree with the Buffalo Sabres experts. He's now playing. He did have a fusion, which is not, radical surgery, but it is relatively new, right? So you can't blame Buffalo for not wanting to do something like that, but you can't blame Jack Eichel for rolling the dice, right?
No, and he wanted to go for a surgery that Buffalo didn't want him to have because they didn't feel it was worth it. So, he managed to get himself traded to a team that would let him do that and take the time that he needed to recover properly. So, kudos to him for finding a better match for himself. It's unfortunate for Buffalo that they had to lose a player of his caliber, but they seem to be doing fair to middling without him. So it's
free choice is something that he has a right to, especially when it comes to if he wants to take a chance and do something. Gabriel Landeskog sounds off on an awful night for NHL refs.
So this is another incident. Um, they were blanked 2-0 by the Carolina Hurricanes, but Kadri got a rather hinky looking penalty, and Landeskog felt that the other player should have been called for embellishment. Um, the other player obviously wasn't. Now Landeskog is probably going to be fined for that because you can't badmouth the referees, because the NHL is all about taking care of their referees' feelings, and you can't make them look bad. And he's
Well,
basically done that by calling them out. So we'll have to see where it goes from here.
well, officiating is going to be questioned. Is it good that players do that? Is it acceptable? Well, I have to say that on a sliding scale, if the referees are making real terrible calls, I think I think it's a matter of the referees are going to have to stand behind their work, and if they can't stand behind their work, then they need to correct whatever it is that you're doing that's wrong, and the league needs to ensure that these kinds of things don't happen all the time. There has to be a consistency. But if you don't enforce rules, you can't complain about the complaints that players make. That was my point going back to the other issue. So
Yeah,
it's all the same kettle of fish, right? It's all about making oh heck, you play cards with a friend, you have the rules all the time, and then if a friend says, well, you know what, for today we're going to change the rules because I need it to change. Because that's what it looks like, right? It looks like favoritism. And you can't have that in sport.
no, and here's something interesting. Of all the players in the league that have penalties called for them, in other words, drawn a penalty, Austin Matthews currently sits 352nd on the list of drawn penalties, having drawn a grand total of 6 so far this year.
Yeah, for a
So
guy that
either
has the puck as often as he does.
I'm just saying, either opponents are playing him incredibly cleanly, his quality of play has declined, or the referees are missing something. And speaking personally, I'm going to go with missing something.
Well, they missed something last night.
Mm,
So if you're paranoid about referees not making calls on your behalf, that kind of thing doesn't exactly make it go away.
no,
Paralympic wake up call. Canada grabs 5 medals.
this was a fantastic haul for Team Canada. Um, but yeah, we've got another one in para ice hockey. We also got another one in wheelchair curling. We also had there it is, 4 Canadian athletes in Canada's wheelchair curling team added more hardware. So Molly Jepson, Mark Aarons, Brittany Hudak, Tyler Turner, and Mark Idison pushed Team Canada's medal count to 21. So this is pretty awesome for us. The Canadian men's para ice hockey team beat South Korea 11-0 to qualify for the gold medal. So we're guaranteed at least a silver. Now, Molly Jepson finished second in the women's standing giant slalom with a time of 2:05.95. That actually betters her time from Pyeongchang in 2018. So we've been doing relatively well with the Paralympics.
Absolutely. Well, going over to women's hockey, Team Sonnet dominates Team Scotiabank to win championship at PWHPA Dream Cup Tour Women's Hockey Showcase.
Yeah, this is something that they've been doing for the past couple of years. The Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, based on the sponsors for the teams, has been running a little tournament there. Team Sonnet, representing Toronto, had a 7-goal third period against Team Scotiabank, who play out of Calgary, to claim a 10-2 victory in the championship game at the PWHPA Dream Cup Showcase hosted by the Washington Capitals. So some of the NHL teams are getting in on the action here, and I think that's
and good
fantastic.
for them, and they should.
Oh yeah,
They should. I on our lacrosse show yesterday with Gary, and we had oh my goodness, oh I forgot her name now. Well, that's because I wasn't planning to do this. So, but I'll get her name. Give me a sec here, and I'll get her name. All I have to do is go to yesterday because I have it written here. Go to yesterday, but I have to go to Thursday. There we go. Michelle Boyer, we had her on. She's a women's chairperson for World Lacrosse. And I was discussing with her, asked her opinion, Aaron, about what do you think of the idea of contact in women's sports? And she says, well, lacrosse, we've had it all along. Do you think it would make a difference in hockey if women were allowed to have contact? And would that help to draw more interest? And I know women can handle it because they do in lacrosse. They do in
I had
football. They do in
I,
boxing. They do in UFC.
I had thought about that. My only real issue with it is a lot of I've known some women who have suffered concussions, and they seem to take longer to recover. I
Okay,
don't
so there's an
know.
issue with that.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know if it's those particular individuals who take a particularly long time to recover, or if it's women in general, or if men are just built with thicker skulls to handle it. I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest with you, but
Okay,
I would.
there's a comment
It's
there. You're just asking
Oh,
for
I'm asking for trouble here, and
comment.
it's gonna happen. But honestly, I wouldn't mind. I know the women seem up for it, and based on the way that Team Canada and Team USA play each other every international game, I have no doubt they would relish the idea of physical contact. So
What if, Aaron, back in the day, you may not be old enough to remember, but back in the day in international hockey, you were allowed to body check in your own zone. So, in other words, that allowed defenders to defend using contact.
as in the forwards couldn't hit on the forecheck, but the defenders could hit them. I think that could be a definitely interesting wrinkle. As long as we get rid of the backwards pass and make sure that two line passes are permitted, I think that's a great thing for the sport of hockey. I honestly think full contact in women's sports should have been done a long time ago. I'm not
The
sure
only
what the
reason I
reasoning is for
say it,
it's
the only
not.
reason I say it is because I think it will make the game like when you say women's hockey is as good as men's hockey, I get it. That's something that can be said. All right. What can't be said is that it's the same as men's hockey. It's not as look, you and I both know that fans go to watch hockey. A lot of it has to do with fighting, which is not what I'm promoting, but a lot of it has to do with contact. The physical play is what makes the game not only for the fans, by the way, I think for the players as well, makes it more interesting.
Oh, guaranteed. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm having issues adjusting to the men's league that I'm currently playing in because I want to rub people out along the boards and I want a little
well,
more
well,
contact. But
the reason that you stated has value even in your kind of league because if you're playing in a house league where you're just doing it for entertainment, for amusement, for pastime, right? You don't want to lose 3 weeks at work because you broke your leg playing,
no,
playing hockey on the once a week. You know what I'm saying? I
I'd
get
hate
that,
to.
and I
Yeah.
get that with the women. I think what it might be, and this is just a thought thing for me. I think because it was never introduced into women's hockey, it was treated like it was treated like I hate to say this is going to be a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it. It's almost sexist to suggest that women can't handle the contact. Um, and I think UFC proves that women can handle contact. I think contact football. They play football. I think women can handle the contact. Now, if the women and the league doesn't want to have contact, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying that they have to do it. I'm just saying that if you want to make the game more interesting, when we watch hockey, before there was women's hockey, there was always contact with boys, men playing hockey, right? So now you bring in this game where there's no contact. And it reminded me of watching videos of me playing those weekly games as well, where there's no contact. It wasn't it. I'm talking about watching myself and teammates play. It was not as interesting without the contact. It's just an opinion I have. Call it a bad one, but it's just talk. So, I'm not sitting here saying that, women's hockey has to have contact. I just wonder if anybody's ever had a conversation about it. And Michelle Boyer yesterday helped me to wonder out loud because she was talking about how much she liked the contact.
Yeah, and again, it's not even trucking somebody open ice. It's not
No.
even that. It's jostling for position in front of the net, maybe getting a body on somebody in the corner and holding them against the boards, that sort of thing. That is I'm perfectly okay with that. If I'm standing in front of the net and a defender wants to rock me because I'm blocking his goalie's view, hey, fair play to them, right? I mean, I know the referee's probably going to call it, but it's
The
a little
real
bit of physical contact doesn't hurt.
the real question is, and I ask this of the viewers, listeners, whomever, do you think, and if we did surveys, this would be a good survey. Do you think women's hockey would be more exciting, better to watch if there was contact? Because essentially that's what I'm asking. That's the question I'm posing. How do you make women's hockey more interesting and more, and I think contact would be one of the things because I think women can handle it.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one, Frank. I think I'd enjoy seeing that.
It'd be different, that's for sure.
Yep.
This is, oh boy, Aaron, we're getting into the weeds here when it comes to the pandemic. Now, apparently there's a report that unvaccinated Major League ball players can't travel to Canada and won't be paid for missed games.
Yeah, I saw that report as well. I was very curious about that. And again, it has to do with border rules.
Yeah.
As it currently stands, unless you're double vaccinated, you can't cross the border either way, Canada or US. So coming or going. But under the new terms that they've negotiated as part of what's gone on with the CBA as well this time around, you're going to be put on a special exemptions list if you're not double vaxxed, which means that the games in Canada
won't include you.
No, they're it's not included as part of your pay. So it doesn't count as part of your experience, and it doesn't count as part of your paycheck. You get put on a restricted list, but typically it's
does
for
that mean
players
that they lose whatever the value of that game is relative to the rest of the contract? Is there a percentage of the contract that they'll be giving up?
That's correct. You don't accrue service time, and you don't accrue pay for it because you're on the restricted list.
So it gets factored. Whatever 1/162nd. Something like that, right?
And again, because it's 4 or 5 games at a time, you're looking at eventually could potentially be up to 20% of your season.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, especially if you're the Yankees.
Yeah,
you're the Blue Jays playing the Yankees.
Yeah, and they would miss 9 to 10 games a season because divisional teams play each other 19 times in 2022.
Wow.
So that is potentially 9 to 10 games a season you'll not be compensated for.
So that's about 6% of their salary.
Mm-hmm.
By quick math in my head.
Yep.
Wow. That's crazy. Here's some good news, though. Major League Baseball has, by the way, they're back. Baseball's back. We should mention that. They had an agreement. Major League Baseball has a new 12-team format. It'll be expanded postseason for baseball. That's about time. They wanted 14.
I was interested 12. To see how 14 would actually work, but I'm glad to see
like with the NBA.
Mm-hmm. So they'll double up the play-ins like that, and then I guess the first team gets a bye, while the first place team gets a bye, while the second and third place team in each division, whatever, play off against each other, or however it's going to work.
Yeah, so. And then they bring in an extra couple of teams that'll probably be something they'll have to wait for 5 years when this bargaining agreement expires. But it'll be the next playoffs is in every sport, Aaron. I don't know about you. I do know about you. We both know. The excitement gets ramped up in the playoffs.
Oh, it definitely does.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
Whitecaps COO steps down. What happened here?
This is a rather interesting situation that's been kind of mutating for the past little while. But basically what it boils down to is Vancouver Whitecap executive Rachel Lewis has resigned, but is cooperating with an investigation into how the soccer club handled sexual misconduct allegations against 2 former women's team coaches. So she left to pursue other opportunities, which is what Whitecap CEO Alex Schuster said in another statement. But she's been with the team through the allegations and how those were handled against Bob Berarda and Hubert Busby Jr. So These are allegations about these coaches looking back between 1988 and 2006.
Not good.
Yeah.
Good news on the employment front. Canada added 337,000 jobs last month, twice what was expected.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to recall here, or remember here as well, is that while it did bounce back in a big way, we're looking at mostly jobs that were part-time and not necessarily full-time.
Mm-hmm.
short-term contract, that sort of thing. So we are adding jobs, but it'd be interesting to see how long those jobs actually stick around. But
Yeah.
the jobless rate is finally back to where it was actually pre-COVID. So that's a positive sign.
Bell Island is getting a family doctor back, at least for a little while.
Yeah. Now Bell Island had a bit of an issue retaining them, and now as it currently stands, uh, the doctor that's coming back, Dr. Firas Ayar, is returning with an 11-week contract under Eastern Health. He actually left the community back in September after serving the community for more than 7 years, but that left the island without a physician and only one person working in the emergency room at the Dr. Walter Templeman Healthcare Center. So it's just a precarious situation for them, but I'm glad that they're actually finally getting a doctor back, at least part-time.
CTV expresses regret over errors included in Patrick Brown's article.
Now, I don't know if you recall this, Frank, but
Oh,
there
I
was a bit
do.
of a to-do. Okay, all right. But yeah, there were various things that were reported back in 2018 in the lead up to the party leadership campaign for the provincial Conservatives that essentially tarnished Patrick Brown's reputation and sewered his political career, at least for a while. He's, as you know, now the mayor of Brampton. So it didn't derail it too much, but enough significantly that he wasn't able to lead the party. This, by CTV, led to the current imbroglio that we're under with Doug Ford, because it basically threw the leadership race for the PCs of Ontario to him. Now, Brown and the broadcaster have actually settled an $8 million defamation suit. However, it did not. There haven't actually been any details released as to what exactly they've settled on.
Probably because there'll be an NDA involved.
Yeah, more than likely.
Which pretty soon are going to be outlawed. If you're in America, anyway, they're just about to pass law in the U.S. They're going to be dealing with NDAs, and because the feeling is that people who do wrong should not be able to hide behind payment. So I don't know how that works. Do people lose the opportunity to make someone accountable? Like in this case, right? The media makes a mistake. Patrick Brown is hurt. He gets compensated, and CTV doesn't have to have the full story exposed.
Because
It
they've
still
already.
leaves something. It still leaves something to be desired. It still
No,
doesn't. It doesn't taste. It doesn't smell right.
no, it does. It's an incomplete solution. I think that a lot of people might have issue with, but
But it's one of those. So what do you do otherwise? That's the problem. What's
yeah.
the other option, right? What do you do? So yeah, I think what it comes down to, Aaron, all the time, right? It comes down to accusations being assumed to be guilt. You and I have had these conversations. You know where I stand. I know where you stand. At the end of the day, this guy um, didn't do what people assumed he did by virtue of what they thought the accusation which
Mhm.
essentially is what CTV did. They jumped to conclusions.
Yep. And they didn't have all the facts available to them, or the
Right.
facts that they claimed to have reported were in fact erroneous. So that's, you know, part and parcel of exactly how everything got damaged for him. Now, on the other side of this as well is he's actually considering running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. So
Right.
I'm not sure if the details of the settlement with CTV will preclude him running or signing up for April
I don't
19th.
I don't think it can or should really,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's no different than anyone being in a court case where the court case, if the person's found guilty, could affect their employment, whether it be a politician or anyone else. And then at the end of the court case, you find out that they're innocent. And do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you can't deny people. You can't because see the reason I'm so against my thinking is this, Aaron. You can ruin a person's life by just making an accusation. You can take care of an opponent just by making an accusation. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
and then you're what you're basically saying is you're gonna allow surreptitious behavior, lies and deceit, to make decisions on who gets to be employed doing what. And that to me that's why, you know, the term beyond a shadow of a doubt, is so important. It's not about if someone looks guilty, it's about if they are guilty. And that's the problem at the root of why I stand where I do on this issue whenever it comes up. But I get your position, trust me. But you want to fine line your position, you can at this point.
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right.
Yep.
So, Toronto landlord accuses tenants of fraud, forgery, and not paying thousands in rent.
So this is one of those cases where Toronto landlord Mohammed Kamara, he rented out his 2-bedroom condo 11 months ago, and the two women that moved in there haven't paid rent for the past 7 months. So he's in the process of trying to evict them for fraud, forgery, and non-payment of rent. There is an eviction hearing today at Ontario's Landlord and Tenant Board. It's his second attempt to try to evict them. He's owed $13,000 in back rent from two tenants, at least one of whom he says has used questionable ID to rent his downtown condo. They are
If they have
apparently
if they have questionable ID, all these things. Well, these are interesting. Like, can someone rent a place with questionable ID?
it may have appeared good on the face of it, but then, looking back on it, and he says he's tried to enter the condo for inspections after giving proper notice, following, everything that he's supposed to. But they haven't paid him rent at all. They've refused to let him enter. They provided him with falsified ID, job references, and credit reports.
Wow.
All of this to rent that. Now, the police are investigating his allegations, but the police haven't been able to confirm it. He says he's lost about $22,000 so far.
This is if he is making such accusations, I would assume it's based on information checks, or the implication here is someone's not telling the truth and
Yep.
lying about stuff, and they're basically giving the opinion that someone's getting money or something that represents money, and they're misrepresenting it. Forgery. I don't know how these two things. How I know that the biggest issue when it comes to home, whether it's apartment, whether it's your house, whether it's whatever, you almost have more rights when you're renting a house. Almost. Um, and it's hard for landlords to get tenants out, which there's a reason for that. Let's not forget the reason for that. You can't have people turfed out of their homes just because a landlord wants to raise the rent, if I'm making my point.
No,
You know,
understandable. And
right?
rent evictions are a thing.
Right.
You
And
know.
that's what we got to be careful of. And again, it works again. He's laying accusations.
Well, he said
They
that the lease agreement that they entered into was effective April 1st for $1,900 a month for the 2-bedroom unit, and it was a
Mhm.
1-year lease. By July, their payments were late, and then by August, they'd stopped paying it all.
Right.
He'd actually tried to enter the unit on 24 hours notice at least 5 separate times, and was only able to enter the unit once with the help of a building security officer, because one of the tenants wasn't actually home at the time to deny him entry.
And again,
So,
you have to, yeah. Again, you can't suck and blow at the same time. So what I'm going to say is, until he can prove what he's saying, they're just accusations.
mhm.
Assuming what someone says is, to me, it's dangerous. Do people have a right to not pay rent? I don't think they have a right to do that. But there's a lot of wiggle room in that regard, right? We know stories where people don't pay rent, landlords can't get rid of them for months.
And
That's common practice almost.
in this particular case, one of the tenants provided a letter of reference from someone who identified themselves as the owner of Canada Design Build,
Hmm.
and the other provided a job reference from a company called General Care Nursing. Both of the phone numbers for either of those places are no longer operable.
All right.
So again, that calls more into question as to whether or not it's actually legitimate or not.
Yeah,
CBC
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Toronto
yeah.
did some investigating on their own and can find no provincial records for either Canada Design Build or General Care Nursing. So, you know,
So, yeah, a person can jump to conclusions on that. So, the best thing to say here, then, Aaron, because I'm going to find a way to agree with you. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and smells like a duck, it could very well be
it
a
could
duck.
very well be a. I'd like to give the tenants a benefit of the doubt. I'm the kind of
Me
person who
too.
likes to give people the benefit of the doubt in a case like this. But when there's a mountain of evidence that seems to be piling up at the word of the landlord, it does make you wonder. I'm normally not one to side with the landlord, but if you're getting scammed like that or getting taken like that, it's hard for me to agree with you.
No, because landlords are people too.
Yeah,
They're
they
not.
have feelings.
They have feelings, and maybe some landlords. It's not like they have 27 buildings. Some people save all their money and they have places as an investment, and everybody has a right to at least an opportunity of getting a reasonable return on their investment, and not lose money because of anything other than fraud
Yeah.
and forgery. So that's terrible. We're siding with the landlords. This is a scary moment, Aaron. We should mark this somewhere. Speaking of, here we go with reverse roles here. Jussie Smollett, he has been sentenced to 150 days in jail for staging hate crime. So this was something, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, clarified. It has to do with something sort of new police department got involved, and they feel the job wasn't done right the first time in Chicago, and now it's being corrected. Is that what's going on here?
It does appear that way, yes. Now they did reopen the investigation, and Judge Lynn said that the actor was profoundly arrogant, selfish, and narcissistic, and staged it. Now Smollett maintained his innocence throughout. He yelled out in the courtroom, "I'm innocent. I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBT community.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I did not do this. I'm not suicidal. If anything happens to me when I go into jail, I did not do it to myself. You must all know that." As he was being led from the courtroom.
I can understand his fear, but I can also understand that there was a lot of evidence that the Chicago Police Department let him go. And I don't think it was any coincidence that it was during all those marches where
No.
legitimate Black men were being killed for no other reason than driving while Black, walking while Black, living while Black.
Now he was sentenced to pay $120,000 of restitution and 30 months felony probation on top of the 150 days. The judge in the ruling said, "I do not believe you did it for the money. The only thing I can find is that you really just craved the attention. You wanted to make yourself more famous, and for a while it worked."
Yeah,
Um,
what about getting the sympathy thing going on?
hmm. I just at a certain point, if the evidence mounts up, and it's shown that you're not telling the truth,
That's
eventually that
enough. You
sympathy will
shouldn't have
slip
to.
away.
You're right. There shouldn't have to be a motive attached. It can be just that they did something that's wrong, and they should be punished for it. Who cares why they did it? I mean, you know, uh, if it wa- if that does matter sometimes. Like for example, we've heard these stories of people stealing food from a grocery store. And they didn't steal it to get rich. They stole because they were hungry or they were trying to feed their family. That doesn't justify what they did, but it does explain the motive. That's when the motive matters. It's the motive was desperation, and I don't know if his motive is desperation here. It sure doesn't sound like it. So, so Canada slapped sanctions on Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich. He's very popular, owns the Chelsea team.
Yeah. So Canada has announced that, yeah, they were going to, in total, actually, he's one of 5 top business leaders who were added to the list of those deemed to be enabling President Vladimir Putin. Abramovich, who, as you mentioned, owns Chelsea, Also holds a 28% stake in Evraz, a steel company that has
Yep.
operations in Western Canada. So,
Saskatchewan in particular.
yeah. So because of that link, in particular, they did actually mention that there would actually be Trudeau. Sorry, said that he's confident there's going to be no impact on the 1,700 people who work for Evraz in Regina, but at the same time, the sanctions are going to be applied to him. Now, there is a side corollary to this as well. Apparently, the sanctions that the UK has applied to Abramovich has affected the credit cards that have been distributed for paying for expenses with Chelsea FC, leaving the
Yes.
team unable to pay for gas for buses. So that's an unintended side effect of, being
And
owned
what's
by
this
an
about
oligarch.
Chelsea could be allowed to sell tickets to fans again if proceeds go to Ukraine?
Oh, this is the side wrinkle. As it currently stands, the UK had barred Chelsea from selling future tickets to non-season ticket holders. What they're saying now is, well, if you do sell tickets again, because there are a lot of Chelsea fans out there and they have a considerable loud voice, according to Nigel Huddleston. There was a meeting of the Football Supporters Association on Thursday, and the government said that they'd be open of idea of a return to ticket sales if the proceeds from those sales would be donated to charities to aid Ukraine.
Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. The drama unfolds on in Netflix Drive to Survive season 4.
So I don't know if you've actually watched the series at all,
A
but
little bit.
It's been fantastic to watch. It's been a lot of fun to see the smaller teams and how they get by. But this official season 4 is going to be looking at the rivalry between Lewis and Max and how things went off the track and on the track with only the behind the scenes access that Netflix was able to get. It looks to be very entertaining. So.
And they both have a competitive edge, and they've displayed it publicly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Let's go down to COVID. We talked a little bit about it. 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic. What's changed, Darren?
Well, I mean, the fact that a lot of us are getting vaccinated now, we're a little more cautious about the way that we treat ourselves and we go out in public and that sort of thing. We're seeing significant public health rules loosening now, mainly because of the fact that we have done a lot, not everything, but a lot to try to control the spread. So from masking to vaccines to double vaxing to, booster shots, a lot of people are doing what they need to do. A lot of businesses have also said that they're willing to keep the masking rules in place as a way to help prevent that as well. And the reason why is they want to try to preserve the businesses that they've and the customer base that they've gained throughout the pandemic by being health conscious. The food may still be bad for you, but at least you won't catch COVID while you're there.
Ontario removes more than 400 deaths from the official COVID-19 count.
Yeah, it sounds like the government of Ontario is trying to massage the numbers.
Wasn't there a massaging of numbers at the beginning?
Well, it's
now they're getting massaged at the end.
They're looking for a happy ending so they can approve mask mandates without feeling too much guilt by massaging these numbers. And I'm just going to show myself out here.
Well, this speaks to a lot of what people, that are against the, anti-vaxxers, maskers, that they're saying that too much credit's being given to COVID when it comes to deaths. Unfortunately, this speaks to that issue, rightly or wrongly, Aaron. It's not a good look.
No, it really isn't. And, the fact that they're removing mask mandates from schools and the fact that on the 21st of March, restaurants, gyms, stores, schools, all of that, they're going to be losing their mask mandates. Now, there was a statement that was put out by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, for those of you who live in the Toronto area, about their take on it. And they said, well, we are going to make the wearing of masks voluntary, but also strongly recommended if you're going to be attending sporting events.
We know how far strongly recommended goes.
Oh, sure. I'm going to wear mine because it's got team branding on it. So, hey.
Should you still wear your mask while shopping, Aaron?
I think so. I think I look stylish while I wear it, so I'm going to keep doing it. I understand that there will be detractors who will choose to take pot shots at me verbally in public for
I
continuing
get
to wear
that,
a mask, but
and I'm concerned about that because I don't want to be at somebody's target, and I just think the irony is always there where you get people who feel like they're being attacked, so as soon as they get a chance, they feel like they owe it to them, type thing, and that's this kind of reflex attitude is irritating in my mind. Ford shoots back at school boards making looking to extend mask mandates.
so yeah, this is another thing that they're looking at here. The TDSB says, look, we'd like to be given a little bit more time before we just go ahead and remove the mask mandates. And Ford saying, well, they're not Dr. Kieran Moore, so I trust their opinion as far as you want. And at the same time, he's talking out of the other side of his face by saying, well, but I'll wear a mask if I go visit somebody in hospital. So, mask wearing where it's convenient, but not necessarily mask wearing.
Yeah. BC drops mask mandate, vaccine card no longer needed.
And this is going to be by April 8th. So they're going to be a couple weeks behind Ontario, but they've been ahead of the curve for a bit now. The fact that they're taking a couple weeks longer than Toronto before they do this sort of thing, and before Ontario before they do this thing, speaks to a little more caution, which is ideally what we'd like to see out of the Ford government. But as of March 18th, visits to long-term care homes in BC will be restored, and businesses will be able to transition from COVID-19 safety plans to communicable disease plans, which are a different set of criteria for when it comes to, masking and shields and ventilation and that sort of thing.
We've got a couple of minutes left. When it comes to all this stuff that people have done, the people that have complied, the people who have believed the instruction that the government and the healthcare system and healthcare experts have asked us to do, get vaccinated, mask. Now that this stuff's all going out the door, the decisions that you and I made, am I bitter that I was vaccinated and I didn't have to be? I'm going to say this very loud and very clear without yelling. I'm okay with being vaccinated. And the reason I'm okay with being vaccinated is I haven't heard or seen any reason why I should regret it. To suggest that I'm some sort of sheep for doing it is, in my opinion, childish and typical. And I am not disappointed at all that they're going to go backwards, only on one reason. As long as we get through this thing, and if I just went a little further than I needed to go, but we ended up where we want to be, the reason why I did this, if I end up where I wanted to be because of my contribution, I'm okay with it. How about you?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't regret being vaccinated in the slightest. It's something that I've done my entire life. I get the flu shot every year.
I
I
as
get
well.
my tetanus boosters. I get my HPV. I get whatever when I get my hepatitis A and B when I go to travel. I make sure that I have all of like everything is up to date. I don't have a complaint about this at all. That we got to where we got is in part because of the actions that I took, not in part of the actions of people who like leaning on horns at 3 o'clock in the morning and blocking traffic. Right? I
Right.
did what I did to help us get to where we got because I am more concerned about my friends and my family and people around me and taking care of them because that's what one does.
Yes, I agree 100%. When asked to act, you don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. You make the decision based on what your mind, your heart, and what you're hoping you'll accomplish will be positive, which is why we do it. And that's why I did it. You did it the same reason. And for those of you who've been vaccinated, don't let the fact that you were vaccinated feel like you were dummied up by people. You did the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and that's all that matters.
If we can look back on this and see our actions as an overreaction, then we know we've done it right.
Absolutely. I'd rather go an inch further than an inch short because you don't know what'll happen in that little gap. A lot can happen in that little gap. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Frank.
For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. is when you can catch it. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.